that the army is professional and that they can make emperors.
Well, those are two related facts.
Yeah.
Actually, the deepest problem, I think, in Tacitus's view is, and here I'm thinking about the same passage that I was referring to when I was answering Professor Kugler's question. That passage begins by Tacitus evoking the loss of equality in the Republic. By which he means, and he attributes it to the great conquests and all the wealth. Great conquest, great wealth seems factually almost always to be highly unequally distributed. This is the theme, of course, taken up in great detail by Montesquieu. That if you want a kind of rough equality, which is probably conducive to republicanism or certainly to democracy, it's easier to achieve at a relatively austere level. Once you get to the level of great wealth and luxury and so on, inequalities tend to become exasperated. Now, what's wrong with those inequalities? Well, in the Roman case, those inequalities lead to competing factions, competing for power. I mean, somehow you need a tradition which works, where concern for the public good happens, and plays a major role in what people actually do. Now, when one says that, we are heirs to Machiavelli and Hobbes and modern political economy and everything else, and we say, well, that sounds like an old fairy tale and so on. And there's an element of truth to that. I mean, I think if you sort of, in our circumstances, go out and start lecturing, we want true republicanism, everyone give up self-interest and care only for others and so on. I mean, you're allowed to do that, and that's fine, but it's probably not going to achieve anything political. But that doesn't mean it's not possible in an actual way for there to be something like what Montesquieu is to call political virtue. I mean, after all, even Machiavelli, whom you have probably heard is rather skeptical about idealistic virtue, believes that there was such a thing in Rome. And you have to think about how does it come about? Well, it comes about, Machiavelli also talks about equality. You don't have too great inequality. You have some kind of check on those. Rome was heading towards great inequalities, but then the tribunician power helped to check some of the excesses of that and so on. But you don't go to too great inequalities, and you have habits, practices, etc., whereby people actually do pursue the common good, and if they're inclined not to, are more easily guided back towards doing it. And some of these can be institutional measures. Machiavelli, for example, mentions the fact, and it's a very good fact, one which, upon reflection, makes me admire John Quincy Adams, that a political leader or a military leader who attains to a certain height should, in a republic, be willing to serve again on a lower level. Right? Not think it's beneath your dignity, having been general, to serve as colonel, or having been consul to serve as something else, but to do it. And the Romans did it. And that's very good for, obviously, every reason you can think of. Thinking of it militarily, right? It means the great general who's consul for 1 year and wins the great victory, well, he goes back to being a lesser general the next year. So his skills are still available. It also means somebody is made a general, and the generalissimo, the consul, and he's surrounded by former generals who are watching his every move, who are experienced and know what they're doing. And if he starts running amok, they'll say, hey, this isn't the way to do it, and so on, right? I mean, this is not an idealistic, fantasy. This is the way things work. Machiavelli endorses it even. How unidealistic can you get, right? So that, I think, for Tacitus is the most basic thing. Now, those great conquests, those great acquisitions are also at a distance. Being at a distance, troops have to be serving longer. You can't drop the plow and go out and fight, so you're no longer going to have quite the same citizen militia. You're going to have a professional militia which develops its own separate interests. Also, serving at a distance, you're probably not going to be sent back every year and replaced. You're going to stay there many years. So may your general, as Julius Caesar did in Gaul. After enough years, your troops are perhaps more deeply attached to you than to the Senate and people of Rome. And then you're set up like Julius Caesar to take vengeance on the anticipated ingratitude that you expect to meet. Huh.
What would be some examples of other historical cases where you think became the closest to the public virtue?